Is he deals in steel products, TMT bars is his mainstay. There is information about the promoters, the management, what the proposal is about. So the first one and a half page can give you an overview of the borrower that we're dealing with today.
QCA, which will be more in-depth qualitative analysis for this particular borrower. We wanted to just start the process by maybe initiating the case on the ICOS system itself, so that once you log in, create a case, so it's more like a placeholder for the case in the system. After that, the QCA can be actually filled online as well. So you have the option to fill it offline in an Excel if you want, but otherwise the entire case can be filled online with your responses. So just to help you do that, I think within every group, I'm hoping that there is one ARM who has the laptop connected to the LAN.
With the QCA. So the objective of this QCA is more to kind of understand what this section is all about. Yeah, Captain, let me explain. The first session is for all of you to kind of do a bit of a role play within your teams and go through the case.
MCG QCA and even the questionnaire that you'll see today will typically have 30 to 35 base questions. These apply to all borrowers irrespective of the industry that the borrower belongs to. And this will span across different categories. So you'll have some questions around the owner and the management itself, some questions around the buyer supplier, the financials of the borrower. So it will be a mix of questions across these categories. Along with, you'll have like anywhere between 4 to 8 questions depending upon the industry of the borrower. So let's say today if we are doing iron and steel, right? So what you'll see in your questionnaire is typically 30 to 35 base questions and another, let's say 7 to 8 questions which are specific to manufacturing iron and steel borrowers. Just a quick process overview, right, of how we now plan to fill the qualitative assessment. And this you will get to know more as you actually do the exercise and as you go through the workflow. So the first, typically like the business, the RMs or the ARMs will be expected to fill the QCA. We'll also in a minute just walk you through some of the sources you can use to fill the different questions. But that is essentially step number 1 in the process of filling your QCA. After that, we encourage in credit to independently fill the questionnaire, right? And then the final step will essentially be for, of course, the credit and the business team to remove any discrepancy that is there in the answer and come up with a final answer for the individual borrower.
Second, supporting documents, which also includes your ICAPS, which is the bank statement analyzer. Third, other industry reports that you have access to. Then the fourth is the publicly available information or press search, and the fifth is the interviews with the borrower. And all of you must have received these QCA cards in your kit yesterday. So if you just quickly go through that.
You will now see in our QCA, in the MCG QCA, we've actually given you a sense of which of these 5 sources you can actually use to answer those questions. And Shwetal can just walk you through some of the examples when you have the cards in front of you.
Question is, does projected EBITDA margin for the customer match with the EBITDA margin in the latest audited financial year? Reflected in the bank statements. The source for this will be ICAPS. Of the company. For that, you will have to use a combination of publicly available information through press search and interviews with the borrower.
Now actually do a quick simulation exercise and we'll just take 2 minutes to actually explain you the roles we expect you to play, right, in the exercise. So each team will have a zonal head, will have RM, ARM and a credit team representative. As you go through this exercise, what we expect, the zonal heads will typically be allocated 1 to 2 teams, and we've already told some of you for the remaining we'll individually walk up to you and tell you which 2 teams or 1 team you are expected to coach. But essentially the role you have to play is that as the members in your team are actually filling the QCA, just sort of understand what rationale they are using, what sources they are using, right? What part of the case handout they are actually referring to answer that question. For the RMs in the team, I think for maybe you can choose to guide and coach 1 or 2 ARMs in your team, right, who will be filling the QCA. Again, I think the role you have to play is challenge the rationale that they are using to fill the questions, to fill the actual answers in the QCA. The ARMs in the team will actually fill the QCA, so all of you actually have, if you access your shared drive, you have an Excel questionnaire that you will be now required to fill. So the ARMs in the team will actually fill the QCA, and same for the credit manager or the team leader who are there in the team. The way we want the exercise to pan out is, for the first 60 minutes, the business team and the credit representative in the team will independently fill the QCA. So each of you have a handout, and there is like a slight difference in the handouts we've given to the credit team and the business team. So first 1 hour independently, without talking to each other, you will be required to fill the QCA. And then in the next 30 minutes, we'll actually encourage you to debate amongst your team and come up with a final answer for the team. Is that clear? Any questions from anyone on how we are running the exercise?
So, I think we have 8 questions. Some of them are related. May I have your attention please at the back, which is around projected EBITDA margin and actual and comparison to the last audited margin. So, I think if there are 3 teams which have or 3 people who have asked this question, but there are several others who haven't. So if I could have any of the teams volunteer to explain how they thought about it, and maybe explain to the group, and then we could clarify as well. Any team which did not have doubts on this and wants to explain how they thought about the question. The first one, question 13. Which is projected EBITDA margin versus last audited.
How did you answer this?
Yeah, any team please can volunteer how they explain this. So Captain America, can you hear? No. Maybe if you could stand up or like just speak.
The question talks about the comparison between your projected EBITDA versus your last audited EBITDA. And when you see in the last 3 audited years, there has been a steady decline. If you see the response also, it says it should be compared with the historical. It does not match with the historical 20% variation is what else. In the last 3 years, the EBITDA margin has been steadily declining. But in the projected years, it has been increased by more than a percentage. So when you compare that, I think this option would be
Numbers going forward. That is what we are expecting you to apply your prediction. You have to see the past trend and the projection what has been given, and what do you expect that projection is realistic, and see the difference. If the variance is very high, then definitely you need to select that kind of option. If you find that variance is not that high, we have given, that's why the range 5%, 5 to 20 or more than that. So that is how you have to select that answer.
So does that clarify the doubt? Because you should not go with any.
Yeah, the purpose is to make sure everyone is at the same understanding.
So that if we have common understanding only, we will be consistent. It's clear. So it is applicable for LCAs also. Just to summarize.
Yeah, okay. Maybe you take the second question here, which is, does the residence refer to the interview of Anand Saxena, and the residential property refer to the same? It's the same.
It's the same, yeah.
That clarifies promoter shareholding. When multiple promoters and group companies are involved, how do you consider the overall ownership? So again, if someone could volunteer on how they went about filling this, it will be good to discuss. Any team can volunteer. So we are combining the promoter shareholding, the third and the fourth. Yeah.
All the 3 promoters.
33.
Yeah. So just if you could explain your logic and how.
All the 3 promoters, Anand, Mudit and Saroj, are talking to around 33% only. It is less than 51%. So there is no corporate guarantee being offered by Nova Mills as per the facts of the case.
I think the 2 questions are, all promoters are involved. So how do you calculate? So you have totaled all of them. The second question is, in case of group company, how do you consider that? Because there could be indirect ownership in the group company. That's the question.
We don't have details of the ownership of the group company, and also they are not offering corporate guarantee into this case.
So that is what you have to cover in your discussion. When you cover in your discussion, is the real guy who is running the show through his family members or friends. He is controlling the company. That is the idea. But if it is a public limited company, you definitely know who are the defined as promoter as per SEBI guideline. And if it is a PE, again you know that there is a separate outsider who is invested in the company. Okay?
Then I think we can take the questions on volatility in prices. Which question does this refer to?
It must be for RM or raw material or...
yeah, I think, but what's the exact question?
The input RM cost as a percentage of sales is going up by 6%.
Yeah, question number if you could.
Last one number. What is the question number?
Has there been any volatility in the price of the final product or service in the last 12 months? Yeah, 12 in the handout in the Excel.
For the raw material, I can check it from the CM, but for the final product and service, that I'm not able to.
So if you can take the mic. So if you can explain then what option did you choose and why? Because there are options which cover things when things are uncertain.
Basically, we have seen the EBITDA margin. We have seen the EBITDA margin which is declining year on year. So basis on that, and even there was an increase in the cost also. So if there is an increase in the raw material cost, so the client is passing on to the client. So if he's offering passing on to the client, his EBITDA margin is also declining. So because of that, we have assumed that there is a volatility for the price.
Perfect answer. That whether it's a change in the finished price.
Yeah, these are the indirect way of finding out and then the other way of finding out, on a thumb rule basis. Generally, in the audited financial, you will have the quantity of material sold. Generally, okay. Sales divided by that, you will get the average price. Then you will find the volatility. Mix could have different. So don't try to be perfectly all right to the last penny. We just want a sense, okay, that we are clear that there is no volatility. As far as raw material is concerned, most of the raw materials, be it steel, caustic soda, these, that, generally the trends are available if it is a commodity. If it is something very, very specialized, again the GP margin will tell you what kind of variance is happening. And once the variance are there in the gross profit margin, you will definitely ask the customer why that variance is there. So you will have an answer for it. Okay. So there is lot of things which you have to, during the discussion with the customer, you have to initiate this kind of discussion so that you can answer these questions correctly.
Yeah, and I think it's key to remember that's why this is the qualitative credit assessment module, and the questions which are not quantitative is directionally with the best judgment and facts and documents available. And if you remember what Abhishi started off with, the customer interview is really important because that may be the biggest source of insight here beyond the documents that you will see.
So before we go on, I think one thought I'm sure many of us have across tables is why have we selected these questions and why these options? So I know so many questions could have been there, but we zeroed in on 30. Maybe you just want to, in brief, walk past the methodology so that people are convinced and understand why these 30 and these options have been chosen.
Sure, I was waiting when will that question be asked. And some of you, I think when in February 13th when we were there, we covered a bit of it, but for the bigger group, let's talk about it, right? So we started off with about 600 to I think 650 odd questions, which is based on McKinsey's experience across geographies, India, Southeast Asia, other places for the same business, a super set of qualitative questions. We did a round of first set of workshops with the senior management team and even added to this because there was maybe some questions based on experience missing and so on. So we ended up with like 650 to 700 questions. Then there were a series of workshops where also in the geographies, and some of you may have been part of those workshops, where people voted on what would be the questions they think best represent what they use in their credit assessment, right? And the idea being what we are trying to, I think a lot of you use these questions in different forms or the other. We are trying to codify and standardize the most relevant questions. So even as new people join the team, they can directly start using it, right? The best credit guys, the best RMs may anyways be doing this out of experience, but this is a young team and so on. We don't want 10 years of experience and then you ask the same question, right? So it also becomes a ready starter kit of trying to codify the best intelligence in the bank and externally on what are the relevant questions you can ask, which are not available from financial statements or necessarily quantitative parameters. So that 600, 650 came down to about 80 to 100 based on these workshops where different teams across the the head office as well as across locations voted on what they would be questions. We added a few questions even if they didn't come in the voting because where we thought they could be predictive. Then these 80 odd questions were back tested. So actually real cases. And how many were the back tested cases roughly? QCA cases, how many? 300 odd cases over the last 4 years were back tested. So for example, and you were again part of those back testing workshops, several of you. The idea being that if this question was asked say in 2017 or 16 when this loan was given, what would be the answer? For example, we may know the loan has gone bad subsequently or so on, but we didn't know it in 2016 or we didn't know how it would turn. So many of you helped recreate the file and answer these questions on what it would have been in 2016, and then this was statistically tested which question was predictive and which was not. Some questions seemed very intuitive, but actually on ICICI's own customer database they did not make any predictive difference between a good and a bad case. Several questions clearly had patterns on where responses were filled were indicators of what is good and bad. Those questions have then been prioritized into these 30-35 questions. We had a choice around 35-40 questions. Another round of discussions happened and the most predictive 30 odd questions have been picked up. That's a bit of where we started. So again to recap, we started with about 600 questions from the McKinsey library, added 50 to 100 questions from the top management. 700 questions were then brought down to 80 based on workshops across the country. These 80 odd were back tested with 300 plus cases, and then the final 30 which are most predictive on ICICI customers is what has been picked up. That's where we start.
Even some of you contributed to the initial questions. It's not only the senior teams, some of you were asked in various workshops to randomly add questions what you thought. So even that has been ranked.
Yeah.
So all of you have also contributed to that piece of building the engine. So
it's really like thing which is not like generic and because someone may ask the same questions, everyone can ask the same 30, 40, 50 questions. But it is the sourcing pattern being at ICICI, which kind of customers you have had in the portfolio, how have you been evaluating? So those factors have been incorporated. So it's really a lot of inputs by the teams across the country which has gone in and then tested on data to be able to make a final judgment.
Yeah. So the final set of questions that are available to you, there are 2-3 elements that is basically we are ensuring. Number one, we have ensured that it is comprehensive. So all these questions we have, if you look at the assessment from the credit point of view, there are typically 8-9 set of categories like business operations, buyer-supplier relationships, products, right, industry specific factors. So we have ensured that all these, we have not like, we have been cognizant of ensuring everything is well covered. So each of these questions represent some of the business aspect that credit should evaluate. So it is comprehensive, it is rigorous. I think the exercise which Aditya talked about is rigorous and it is predictive. We also ensured that this 30 to 35 set of questions will get us a good amount of sense of whether the customer is likely to default in the future or not.
Hopefully not. I think so the whole idea being while these are qualitative, these are standardized objectives, so there are only those multiple choices you can fill. So it's not that I think the customer is great or I think the collateral is in a great is my own judgment, right?
Some of the data is CMA based, and why don't we just pick it up from CMA? It's a very good thought. We did think of it. We can do it, even a month down the line we can do it, but the clarity should be that what we want to do with this engine, and I said it yesterday if you heard me carefully, that this is just a stepping stone. Marvel will have versions, and that is why there are so many superheroes even in Marvel Studio terms, you know. They try to create, so if we have to be relevant in different times, we will have to keep thinking. So coding it to that extent also is not useful beyond a point, because we are not going to cover 1 million customers, right? Anybody has a doubt on that? We will at best serve about 1,000, 1,200 customers in a couple of years. That is what will be the numbers. So for that we don't need to do over programming. Some of these things can be easily computed. Just compute it and go ahead in life. If you are reducing your time from 5 minutes to 4 minutes, we should not program those things. And that's how much time it will take. Today it's the first day that you are looking at these questions, so it may seem like a daunting task, but those 60 minutes which are provided, once you know the case, you will start doing it in far lesser time, I can tell you that, as you get familiar with the questions.
Anyway, it is not good. So that is what we are trying to understand here. Okay, what percentage? Sometimes, you know, we get proposal with 50% and 70% increase because there is a cap of 30 crore and he is at 12 crore and 15 crore. Please, एक ही झटके में 30 crore दे दो. Yeah.
When you are saying greater than 20%, which is a significant increase in working capital, I'm assuming this has a slightly negative connotation.
No,
if it
so
goes
don't
beyond
assume.
20%.
I think because the scoring model is not necessarily, this may or may not be negative, and different options carry different weights. So I would really encourage, don't try and interpret what is positive scoring and what's negative scoring. That will bias what you are filling. No individual question can swing the credit decision by even like any significant margin. All of them, if you imagine, there is qualitative, then there is quantitative as financial, individual bureau, credit bureau, and so on. So this, among that, qualitative is one of 4-5 modules. Within qualitative, this is one of 30 questions. So no individual question will make or break the case. So please, whatever is the fact, just fill it, let the modeling take care of itself. Because otherwise the model will not learn if you fill incorrect information. If over time, for example, we find out customers with whatever significant increase in working capital actually turn out great to be for like very good for the bank or not so good for the bank, then the model will differentiate further. So don't judge the positivity or negativity of a question with bias.
But one thing I want to add, and Tushar, you please correct me. See, the question reads, Sandeep, is does the business plan have a significant increase in working capital gap year on year? So as guidance it says greater than 20%. Are the assumptions backed up by relevant evidences? So when you ask that question, what you are saying that it is a genuine increase, you will accordingly select the options, no?
I mean, I think his worry is that he thinks
I'm just saying that.
No, that his worry is if this is, it could be a good customer with this case and maybe it's counted negative.
I think you addressed it rightly. Don't try to decodify the entire engine. No question, no answer carries a very high weightage. So it is not going to influence. Idea is to reach the PD, not to arrive at the PD.
Yeah, just to so I agree, rather than decodifying the PD. So let us say in the specific case, I was just looking at it, so I found it is that if you see, because when we do the CMA, the practice is whatever the, let us say, percentage utilization in the past years is, but when we make a CMA, the future projections, we show the 100% capacity working capital limits utilization to make it on a most conservative basis. So that's how typically you might be ending up with an extra cash. If the company is already generating cash, you are loading more cash because of 100% limit utilization, and then where do you deploy that? Either you keep the excess cash idle, or in this particular case, as I was looking at. So we, in the projections, creditors will reduce. Creditors might not technically actually reduce, you might not fully utilize. So I'm saying rather than decodifying, it's better you explain the rationale why it has happened. So then,
yes. I think fill the facts and the rationale.
Fill the facts and the rationale.
Yeah, that's good. I think one final question here on salary payments. where salary payments do not reflect a name, what has to be done? I think my understanding is if the salary payments you have in the bank statement, headers of transfers for salary payments, those can be accounted for. Wherever there are no narrations to that effect, it's based on the interview that you will pick up, because there's no other basis to probably come with it. PF, if you don't get it from the documents, then interview is the last resort, and if you can't get it, then it's a not applicable question or a judgment question which you can fill up accordingly. It's like, have the salary payments been on time?
So banking is not able to copy.
Yeah, sometimes if the bank statements of PF, ideally you can. If you can't, then yes, from the interviews, or maybe if you did a
question number 9, sir, under business operations. Sure. Has there been any event in the last 2 to 3 years that adversely affected business operations, and it is impact in terms of revenue or profitability? So what is the percentage we should be generally considering? Like, it could be like, if I talk about the jewelry industry, so there was a surge in the gold prices which impacted the business operations for certain periods in the July to September quarter. So what is the percentage we should be actually considering to say that this is an adverse impact?
This is more, I mean, this is like sort of force majeure kind of cases, like there was, say, there was like a natural disaster, or there was some, region had a curfew imposed on them, or there were other kind of government or regulatory restrictions which came in with significant.
Corona will be an example.
Yeah, so for someone with high China linkages, this would be a significant, impediment in operation. You won't be able to import the materials and so on. So those kind of things is what's
industries in the SME segment that we were doing. So one is into the jewelry segment. So we saw, because of the gold prices rise in July to September, there was a dip in the turnover in the current period. But from October it started picking up. Now the options that I get is that there was an event and he had mitigants and he took those mitigants and he was back on track. Second option that I get is that there is no event which impacted, and third is that he doesn't have mitigants at all and he was just adversely impacted totally. So now I get confused as to he had been impacted, but he is back on track as well.
So here, actually, this question is not for the what you are raising. It is more relevant to the price sensitivity of the finished goods and the commodity.
So this event we will not take it as.
This is not an event. This is a movement in the commodity, because he is into a commodity. So it can happen in steel also. It can happen in cement also. It can happen in chemicals also. Okay, same thing can happen. What is happened with gold can happen with these commodities also. So you have to link it to the fluctuations in the prices. Yeah, so these are
break for a tea.
Teams. Guys, just 2 minutes. Hi. I think each team has already created a case in the system. If you've not, we'll guide you towards it. If you have already filled your case in the Excel, may I request you to go to screen number 16, which is the qualitative credit assessment, and populate all your answers on the screen itself. This is how it will look like. This needs to be the RM or ARM comments, not the credit comments, because the case is being initiated by an ARM. After they finish an Excel, let them just populate it on the screen. So you will see it in the same way, that after the ARM puts comments, credit will independently put comments on their workflow, and after they put their comments, they will be able to see what the ARM has fed in. And after that, credit finally decides what's the final answer that has to go into the QCS scoring, after discussions with the RM-ARM team. So if we can finish that exercise offline in the Excel right now, and then maybe email that Excel to me and to Vidhi.
So one is, each team please run only one laptop. Okay, so I'm saying per team, please use only one laptop on the system. Otherwise the speed can become a little slow because we are not on the corporate network. The second bit is, we will be doing a demo of all the screens. We're going to split it so that it doesn't become very boring. Maybe before lunch we will try and cover up to 10 screens, that's the objective. And all of you need to follow us and try and do it on your systems and save it periodically. So that will help you, to just complete this exercise. If any team is able to follow us then they will be able to generate the PD on their own machines at the end of it and also see the summary note. If you are not able to follow also, it's fine. Don't get too hassled, but do try and follow us, because then it will be easier for you when you use the system in real life. Are the people in the last following? Okay, maybe Chand, you'll just put it up. We had initiated a new case for each one of the teams. So just please stick to your case. Is there any team which doesn't have that new case designated? Which is that team there? Sorry. Okay, you guys don't have. A proposal number you would have been given, right? So which is the, can you raise your hands please? Which team? Vidhi, can you just help them with the new case initiation? You need to go into the proposal note section. So please go into the proposal note tab. There your respective case IDs would be there. So don't open any other case IDs, open only that. So here we are going on to one of our test screens.
Your screen and our screen will change.
No, it will be identical.
But the case will change.
Case will change, but that's fine. So the case has been created for all of you. This is a UAT, so it will be. It doesn't make an impact. So is everybody there on screen number 1? After clicking your case ID, you will get this screen. So is everybody seeing it? All the teams at the back. There's nobody behind you. Are you guys able to see it? I'm not able to see. Yeah, okay, great. Fine. So when you come on to the lead generation, so some of the fields will come pre-filled, right? Because you have already generated the system ID. So from there, it will come pre-filled. In real life, what you will have to do is you will have to actually initiate your case in CAR as well, because CAR is going to be the system where all the details pertaining to a case will be stored for the bank. So you'll have two options. First option is, if you know the CAR, because I understand most of the cases already have a CAR in the system. Case is not there, it doesn't have a unique code in CAR. You have this option of doing a temp generation, which is what I did on your table, or my colleagues would have done it on your table in the morning. So, you then do a temp ID, and then there will be an option to resync with CAR later. It's not yet developed, but by the time it goes live for you, that option will come. So what you will have to do is, you will have to generate a temp ID, start filling, parallelly go to CAR, get your UCC generated, and then you can resync it. So then there will be a resync button and the new UCC will come here. So for now we are going with the temp ID process. So Shilpa, you want to walk them past what you're doing?
Sure. So some of the basic details of the borrower will come in screen 1, which is just the constitution of the borrower, the date of incorporation, how the deal was sourced, and 4 IDs, that is the ARM who is entering the case, the RM who will be the checker, the credit analyst, and the credit team lead. So these 4 IDs need to be entered on screen 1. The idea being that even the credit team should, once their name is entered over here, if they were to log on to the case independently, they will be able to see all the screens and the data that is entered by the RM and the ARM. Even if it is not submitted, they will be able to view the screens and the details that are entered. That's right. So the ARM, RM, credit analyst and credit team lead. So I request if people can start filling in these details parallelly.
So we are giving you exactly 5 minutes. I think it's a very small screen. and it's fairly self-intuitive. I mean, if anybody has a problem, we'll come to your tables, please.
If you select yes, then the corporate guarantor details will need to be entered. If you select no, the section disappears. Likewise, basic details about the company, the industry, the address, and internal external rating. Just to make it faster. So if you can just refer to the email that I have just sent. Just a quick overview of Screen 3. Screen 3 is the screening checklist, where we have defined basic checklist criteria. For example, the industries in which the borrower should not belong, the type of collateral, the purpose of the loan, defaulter check, and so on. Now, the important thing to note over here is that we have the target market norms that are right at the bottom of the screen. So here, depending on the industry, whether it is manufacturing, trading or service, the way the target market norms are defined for the current program, the same norms get populated. The standard and the NFA are populated on the screen. For your case, you need to populate the values. They're also there in the handout that I just emailed. So you need to populate over there, and if any case breaches even the NFA criteria, then the approval will have to be taken as per the program norms currently.
All of you can clap for each other, because first thing is that the QCA exercise was done in fantastic time, and I was just asking the McKinsey team that somebody who's seeing it for the first time, doing it in such quick time, is that normal? So you won the first battle itself, that it is not so normal, they have not seen it, that you've done it in such good time. All of you did it in quite a decent time, which is very, very good. And I think if you can function like that, that confidence will build. We will give prizes, so we have to do that. But overall, this seems to be a great experience of output from all of you. The aspect which we can improve on, of course, giving detailed rationale, and I think that will come naturally as you sort of adopt the system. The interesting factor which we thought will not work out is that the discrepancy between the RM and the credit teams was very limited. It was there, but it was very limited. We thought that, you know, it will create a little more fun for us to discuss, but I don't know whether to see it as a good thing, bad thing. I don't want to comment on that, but I just feel that if it may be that you people have understood the QCA that well, it could be that. So this is something which is neutral. I had expected that large differences will come out in the room, and I believe learnings from that would have been interesting to discuss. But nevertheless, if it's happened, meaning either we sort of are going in the right direction as a journey, because indeed we are thinking alike, and the credit team, I always say, is that has to challenge us, otherwise we will go helter-skelter. So it's a good thing that there is quite a bit of alignment. There are differences, but there's a quite great amount of alignment.
The first cut, actually in the first cut, at least in our team, we had quite a few differences between the ARM and the credit test. But then with the intervention of seniors, especially Ranga and all, it has got ironed out completely, and almost it got aligned completely.
Fair enough. That explains it. But finally, I think the QCA will be ruled by what the credit decides. That should be the independence, and I will encourage the credit teams to be rational on that, but yes, stand your ground, because that is important. Then there were some things that some teams, and means it was across all the teams, that 3 questions were left blank by all the teams, and I'm told it's a common question. There was a lot of commonality, so maybe we can come back and spend some time on those 3 questions. What happened to all the teams? They have not answered it. It was left blank. So somewhere, so they are all nodding their heads. Maybe we'll just see it as a data point. Anyway, when we discuss it, you can give your points of view. We'll discuss it after lunch, so some food for thought on that.